I'm TP McAtamney of My Waffles Are Cold, a man's guide to abusive women. On today's segment, we're going to talk about the immediate aftermath of an abusive relationship. This is the hardest thing that I found I had to go through. And I found it hard because if you were discarded, you're going to have one set of feelings, which is usually going to be anger, and you're going to feel like you want to get back at this person. Or you may want to try to get back with them, depending upon your level of trauma and where you were at in a relationship before the discard happened. If you were like me and you left the relationship because you discovered what you were really dealing with, and you left it with under your own willpower, I still had some problems actually cutting ties to the relationship. And so there are significant, I want to call them pitfalls or whatever to this, that if you're not careful, you could end up back in a relationship with this person should they decide to try to weasel themselves back in again. The first thing I want to say is that, and this is hard for men to understand sometimes, we're not made, at least for this man, crying wasn't easy for me. I didn't grow up that way. Grown men don't cry. Spent 13.5 years in the military with all guys. We just don't cry. And if we did, it was usually after we had some beers and we were alone somewhere, maybe with another, guy at a bar or something, after we got severely emotional or whatever. But it's not something that at least for me, it didn't come naturally. So it's hard to process feelings that way. And initial aftermath, I knew, because what I did before getting out was I began to journal what the narc was up to, so I could see it on paper. By the time I'd had a therapist and many other people, some of which were women friends of mine, who told me that I needed to get out, and this person was just eating me for lunch. And a therapist had told me flat off, this person, without even seeing her, that she was a narcissist and that I needed to get out. So I began to, write down day by day occurrences. For instance, she called at 12:30, said she was here. Now, this was kind of crazy. It sounds crazy. It sounds like I was stalking her, but I wasn't really stalking. I was just trying to put things together to see, because what the narcissist did to me during a relationship was make me feel that everything was my fault. And I didn't have a problem with some things being my fault. I've always cleaned up my side of the street, not afraid to admit when I was wrong. But what I found out was a lot of things that I was admitting were wrong were not wrong. I was being abused. And the reactions I was having, which had an appearance of being wrong, I would have never done had I not been abused. So they were in a direct relation to being abused. So I began to write things down. And then when it became apparent that I could see it on paper that I was being abused, and that this person was a liar and a cheat and was using me, it made the decision to go that much easier. But then you go, and you have this kind of thing that happens in the human mind when you get away from something like this. And this is the funny thing about it. It's not funny, but it's a funny thing about it. As time goes on, you start waxing eloquent. You stop forgetting. You forget all the bad stuff and remember whatever good that was in it, especially if you leave and you're alone, much like I was. Prior to the relationship, I was married for 30 years. I wasn't used to being alone. And this relationship started soon after the death of my wife, because I was targeted while I was very vulnerable. Like I said, I've been married 30 years. My wife died a horrible death from cancer. I cared for her the last 6 months of her life. Very stressful situation. And when she died, I had feelings of relief, feelings of loss. I didn't know how to react. And this woman basically just came in between that, used everything, and hooked me up. So after the relationship, or getting out of the relationship, seeing what she was actually doing to me, I had another fear. What do I do now? What she didn't get from me, I actually gave away. I was manipulated, thinking I was doing the right thing, because I've always been a pretty nice guy. But even in that respect, I've found out and learned from my counselor and stuff, that the giving away I was doing wasn't for the right reasons. It was trying to win her love back. And that's never a good reason to give out all your furniture to somebody and you end up sleeping on a mattress, or spending all your money on vacations only to be left with no money and your house in foreclosure. Okay, it's just sick behavior. And when you're with an abusive person, you're gonna do things like that because you're trying to get, as I said before, most of what you do in an abusive relationship is try to get back to the honeymoon stage once the devaluing stops. And as I mentioned in another video, we had a first time where she did discard me, and I was kind of glad. I really was relieved. I had a lot of friends around me by that time. I said, good. I really found it hard to just make the break myself, and she helped me out by doing it. And for 30 days, I really didn't think about her. I was too involved getting back in, to life, getting my life back together. And then one day she called. And, to get that sniveling call, I'm crawling, and, I'm sorry, and did this mean anything, and all that stuff. To which I decided to have lunch with her. Bad move. And another 2.5 months of getting kicked in the where. Until one night, I left. I said I'd had enough. And I walked out. And I never went back. I didn't answer phone calls. I blocked her phone. I blocked text. I blocked everything. Social media, whatever. I didn't have to worry about defriending her because she did that all the time anyway. Even when we were going out, even when we were engaged to be married long before this, she blocked me just for breathing the wrong way. I was never into that much social media anyway, so it wasn't like a big deal. But when it's right there in the middle of your engagement and somebody's blocking you and you're like, what is this? So, as I left the relationship, I felt empowered, but I also felt a little lost. Like I said, I lost a lot in this relationship. My wife had died, and afterwards, she was helping me clear out and stuff. It all sounded so good, to the point where I gave her all my jewelry. I gave her all my, wife's jewelry because I wanted her to wear something nice. I was always been that way. I mean, I couldn't see put it in the closet or selling it or something like that, only to have her sell it later on for her own purposes. And everything from the furniture we bought, mementos I had, everything was just basically gone. And house was, before everything happened, I had a really good job. I had 3 cars, one of which I let her drive free for a year. And I had all the things that you had in life, a job, everything. And through the whole experience, all that was gone. The house was gone. The cars were gone. The money was gone. I kept trying to take her on trips because I just wanted to, we had been friends 5 or 6 or 7 years. We worked together long before this relationship started, and I thought she was a friend. Maybe, and I even thought, well, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just having a bad reaction. I was trying to reach out olive branches, and nothing was working. It was just working. Maybe I figured, maybe she's had enough of me. It wasn't until, like I said, I got some information that this was narcissistic behavior and that I needed to get out of this relationship. And as I said in a previous video, I wasn't even worried about getting back things that I gave her or whatever. Whatever. I just wanted to cut and go. And in the initial stages, it was really difficult because I remember calling a friend of mine who happened to be female, and I was sitting in front of one of these food stores someplace. I rode my bike up there to get something, and I was just in tears. I said, I don't know what to do. I'm lost. I didn't even have time between my wife's death and the meeting of this narcissist to even grieve my wife. And I was lost. I didn't know what to do. But I continued on. I continued pushing on. See, the one option that was not available for me was going back, no matter what. I made up my mind, no matter what this time, I'm not taking any phone calls, I'm not taking any texts, I'm not going to try to revive this relationship. This is not what I want. And I started thinking of my marriage to my wife, 30 years. It was a good marriage. And I said, that's what I want. If I ever get in a relationship again, this is what I want. I don't want that. I never want to get in that again. And I would rather be alone than to be abused again or used. It's probably the worst thing to do to somebody, to use them for your own purposes. We're human beings. We're not toys. We're human beings. We're not things. To take somebody's heart, especially when another person is really trying. I would have just taken, if she had been a normal relationship and I was just acting up all over the place and she just left, I would have had good feelings and say, okay, we'll just cut it and go. Okay? I wasn't intentionally trying to hurt her in any way. See, that's the difference. Narcissists intentionally try to inflict harm on you. That was the hurtful part. But I had to get over it. I said, you know what? That's who they are. I have to accept that too. There was a lot of acceptance that had to go into this. And in healing, what I've learned is it's that acceptance that keeps you going. It's that acceptance that keeps you away from people like that. It's all about learning. It's all about recognizing, who these people are, no matter what flavor of cluster B they may be, borderline, narcissist. It doesn't matter. Antisocial, sociopath, it doesn't matter. Life's too short. I'm about to turn 60 years old. It's way too short to spend 1 minute with a person who treats you like that. And so for the next 9 months, I didn't see anybody. I cleaned up my my act, so to speak. I started working on, I couldn't save my house. I had to do bankruptcy. That's fine. There's no shame in that. But I wanted to clear out, make sure. And things worked out so good that my house didn't get foreclosed on. I actually got paid off. And actually was still worth some money. And I got everything cleaned up. I did a bankruptcy. Everything was cleaned up. So I got no debt and no house. I actually didn't have much of anything. But it was around this time when I'd healed enough that this woman came into my life who wasn't a narcissist, didn't have any obvious problems, and we just hit it off right away. And today, 1 year later, we just celebrated our first anniversary. Now, I couldn't have done that right after a relationship. I had trust issues. When you've been abused like that, you have trust issues. I didn't trust anybody. Not only just women, I didn't trust men. I didn't trust anybody. I remember I'd go shopping in a food market, and if somebody gave me back change that I missed or whatever, I was like, what are you doing? Why? It's extremely frightening to lose trust in your normal human, in your fellow man, fellow woman. Even friends I couldn't trust. I was beaten to death emotionally. The narcissist never laid a hand on me, but emotionally, I was damaged. Now, I recovered in a relatively short period of time because I have a background in stress management and things, and I read and I listen to my therapist, and I went through the work. There's a lot of different things that if you participate, you can heal that much faster. I decided I don't know anything about this healing process from this, but I will do everything you tell me to do. Whether it's cognitive behavioral therapy, whatever, I will do it. If you give me meds, I'll take my meds. I'm not real big on the meds, but I'll take the meds. I'll do everything. Exercise, whatever you tell me to do. I want to get better. I don't want to spend the rest of my life in the dumps because of this relationship. Again, life's too short. But in that initial time period, if you're not doing the work, if you're sitting around and pining about the narcissist or the borderline or whatever, wondering what they're doing, who they're seeing, spying on their Facebook page, seeing what kind of memes they're posting, even though they may be in their 5th relationship since dumping you or you leaving them, they don't stay out of relationships for long. There's too many targets out there. Usually these people are above average in looks, carry themselves in such a way that they don't have any problems getting another mark. Sorry, I'm just getting over a cold. But if you're not careful, you're just going to spend a lot more time than you need to looking at this person and concentrating on them when it doesn't matter anymore. Kick them to the curb. It's done. It's water under the bridge. Move on. You don't have to jump in another relationship. I had a rule that I used to go around and talk to 12-step groups. They have a rule. Not everybody follows it. But the rule was that the first year you have away from a drug or alcohol, you don't get in relationships. You work on you. You don't have, you don't need to be distracted. I suggest the same thing. Take a year. I almost waited a year and then I met my present wife. Take a year off. Do your work. Work on you. Find out what happened to you. Study. You don't have to be a psychiatrist. It's very simple. There's a lot of stuff out there on my Waffles page, in my book, and in lots of other pages and in lots of other books. Eat the hay, I would say, and spit out the sticks. Not everything's going to fit you. It doesn't have to be program but you'll find something if you put it all together. When I used to do my stress management seminars, I would tell people, I'm just going to give you some tools. You may not need the hammers and the screwdrivers. Maybe you just need, a crowbar. But take what you need to help you with your stress management and get rid of the rest. Eat the hay and spit out the sticks. That's what you got to do. And as you do that, as every day goes by, you'll find this person less and less in your memory, less and less in your past. And if you don't, and you're doing all the work, well, then there might be some other underlying problems. Post-traumatic stress, complex post-traumatic stress. You may have problems with anxiety. You may have some other issues which a qualified mental health professional can also help you with. They can help you identify it, help you get on some short-term treatment for it, medications, whatever, and, help you along. But you're moving forward, that's the point, not backwards. Forget the Facebook page. Forget about looking at their pictures over and over again. Throw out their pictures. What happened. It's part of your life, but it doesn't have to own your life. Get rid of it and move on. You had an experience. It was a bad experience. It was a horrible experience in some cases. But don't let them win again because they like this. Don't think they don't know you're pining away after them. Don't think they don't know if you're sending fake text or if you're trying to go in under an alternate profile, if they blocked you out of their face. Don't think they don't know. And them just knowing that gives them the supply they're needing. They're still, if they own your head and own your heart, even a piece, they're still getting you. So move on. You don't have, and if you get somebody else in your life, you don't have to splash your Facebook page with, oh, look at the good time we're having. It's none of their business anyway. I mean, you can do that. A lot of people do. And my wife and I got married. We put all our stuff up on Facebook. But, I blocked her. And if she's looking at it from some other link I don't care. I'm not doing it for her. I really enjoy life with my new wife. And we're happy. Very happy. And I feel very fortunate that I'm able to do that, today, in spite of everything I've been through. And I have gone back and looked at, the death of my wife and worked through that a little bit. And my present wife isn't threatened by that at all. She helps me, work that, and I've got a pretty good life today. Why I do these videos and why I wrote the book, it's not so I could become famous. I don't care about that. I care about helping you, other guys and women too. It happens to both of us, to heal. Trust me, I know what it feels. And I see guys on these boards every day still having a lot of anger, and that's fine. If you're still angry, okay, fine, you're angry. But all the anger does is get them to own you more. They're still camping out rent-free in your head and in your heart, and it's not doing you any good. The best revenge is no revenge in these situations. Move on. Nothing you're going to do is bother them anyway. There's no revenge. They don't care. So why should you care? Move on. The best way to get to a narcissist or one of these people is to just totally ignore them. If that's what you want, just totally ignore them. Just don't care. I can honestly say today, I don't care if my narcissist falls off the face of the earth. I don't know. Don't care. I won't know because I'm not looking at her Facebook page. I'm not looking at her social media. I don't care. I've got other things to focus on. I have a daughter. I have 4 grandkids, going on 5. By my marriage, I got another grandkid and a 10-year-old daughter and a bunch of caboodle of stepsons now. I got this whole quiver full of family that I didn't have before, and I'm happy. And that's really what the key is, coming out of the ashes and like a phoenix rising again. Again, I'm TP McAtamney, author of My Waffles Are Cold, A Man's Guide to Abusive Women. And until next time, have a good day.